welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Samueli. It is now 10 a.m. on the east coast of the United States. And in Moscow, it's a little bit later. I won't confuse our listeners by telling them what time it is in Moscow, what time it is in Budapest, but we'll just say
Well,
10 a.m.
the time in Moscow is apparently Donald Trump is dialing Vladimir Putin.
Exactly, even as we speak. Anyway, how are you, Peter?
Well, I'm kind of anticipating what's going to happen. I mean, as usual, during the day, I did a kind of peruse the Western media, and it's all tilted in the wrong direction. I mean, waiting for the ceasefire agreement. It's not about a ceasefire. This telephone call from the Russian side is, how do we end this war?
That's right. That's exactly right.
Maybe at some point, if a plan is developed, the ceasefire could be part of it, but that's not the goal. The goal is to end the conflict, and Western media just can't seem to. Either they're just ignorant, or they're self-deceiving themselves. They're ideologically possessed, but you can't get there. They can't get there, George.
No. Well, all right, we'll come to that. But the first thing I want to talk about is this strange thing that happened yesterday. The announcement by former President Biden that they've discovered a cancer in a prostate cancer, and just discovered like that, and it's at a stage 4 level, which is the worst that you can get, the stage 4 level, because it's metastasized. Let's just take a look at first what this announcement from the doctors. This is the doctors speaking here, and then here we have last week President Joe Biden was seen for a new finding of a prostate nodule after experiencing increasing urinary symptoms. On Friday, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer, characterized by a Gleason score of 9, with metastasis to the bone. While this represents a more aggressive form of the disease, the cancer appears to be hormone sensitive, which allows for effective management. The president and his family are reviewing treatment options with his physicians. But a number of very
sorry, George, and I'm not a medical guy, but he can't control his body. I'm trying to be polite. Okay, I mean he's moved into pamperhood. Okay, that's what they're saying.
Well, that's right. Now, but there are very strange aspects to it. I mean, of all the cancers, prostate cancer is actually the easiest to detect. A blood test, a regular blood test, would detect the prostate cancer. I mean, other cancers, like the colon cancer, they're not easy to detect. You have to go through the whole rigmarole of a colonoscopy, which is very, very grueling. But prostate cancer can be detected by a regular blood test. And one would think a president of the United States has first-rate medical attention, and he goes through regular medical checkups, and indeed within those medical checkups there would be blood tests, all kinds of blood tests that he would have to undergo. Now, so that's one aspect of it, and the other aspect of it is that for a cancer to reach the stage 4 level, it would already have to be in your body for quite some time.
Oh, just missed it. Just missed it.
Just missed it. Yeah, exactly. I mean, just going through what doctors are saying, it says it takes 7 years from its first appearance to the point of metastasis.
George, when you have a checkup, what's the first thing they do?
Blood's always the first thing, and prostate is among the key blood tests that they do. Always, that's one of the key things that they're looking out for.
It's the first thing you do. When I had my eye surgery, an hour before my eye surgery, we need more blood.
Right, exactly. So that that's very strange. And now there's like, oh well, he's been having all these checkups, and all this time you missed it. and now it's at the stage 4 level. Um, so that in itself is, of course, is very strange, because somebody's lying. Now, I mean, either he's lying that he never had these medical checkups, in which case the doctors are lying, or he did have the checkups and they missed it, or he did have the checkups and they didn't miss it, and then and they're all lying about it.
Malpractice and lies. Okay.
Right. Or they're lying now, and then he's just simply
George, the
trying to
4
elicit
years,
sympathy.
the 4 years of Joe Biden was a pack of lies. It was industrial strength lies. Okay,
Right.
and people like Jake Tapper want to capitalize on it when he was part of the caper himself.
Well, that's exactly right, and it's a very good point. I mean, that is what's going on here, which is that there's lies. I mean, lies after lie after lie. I mean, obviously, we've had the whole cognition lie, the lies about his his mental state, and everybody knew that they were lying. But now there are all the physical conditions, and people noticed that this wasn't just simply his senility, because people said there are clearly something physically wrong with him. The way he walks. I mean, that's another thing. I mean, that people say, well, there's something very strange about the way he walks, and then they lie about, oh, he has some mild arthritis and so on. But they say, no, that doesn't look like some mild arthritis.
Why does somebody walk that way, George? Because they're afraid. They're afraid of falling down.
Yeah.
That's why elderly people walk that way. They know if you hit the ground and you break your hip, you might not never recover from it, or it'll take years. I know this from people around me. Okay, you shuffle because you're terrified of falling down.
Well, that's a possibility, but it could also be that he's walking in order to avoid pain. And if he had prostate cancer, he may well have been in some pain, and that's why he walked in this particular way.
George, this is my theory of the case, just my own personal one. Obviously, they knew this was the case. I mean, come on. I mean,
Sure.
This is so patently obvious that they're releasing it now because they want to get it off their chest. Okay,
Right.
Because the time is coming for the man. We all have our time. We all have our time. Okay.
Right.
My theory of the case is they wanted to, and through trickery, lies, deception, everything, they wanted to get him across the line. They wanted to get him elected, and then they knew that they would have Kamala Harris as a parachute.
I agree with you. That was exactly my thought as well. That was the plan. That they were just simply going to get him across the finish line. Because remember, the 2020 campaign. What characterized that campaign?
What campaign? What campaign?
Exactly. What campaign? He didn't go out of the house. And that was the secret of his success. The secret sauce. He never left his house. Oh, COVID, can't go anywhere.
Well, and also when you're running for re-election, you use the rose garden strategy, where he's too busy to go out on the. I can't go out.
Right.
I'm dealing with the economy. I'm dealing with COVID.
Exactly. That's
dealing with
rose
making sure the genocide continues in Gaza and make sure that war in Ukraine never ends. He was a busy man. Okay, rose garden strategy, can't go out on the campaign.
The rose garden strategy. I mean, a classic case of that was George H.W. Bush, the older Bush, who tried that. Well, I'm really very busy. I'm dealing with these big meetings, G7, and a NATO meeting. I don't have time to campaign with some lowly governor of Arkansas, far too busy.
Known as Bubba.
Exactly, Bubba. I'm too busy. I've got I got Mitterrand on one phone. I got Helmut Kohl on the other. Gorbachev. Sorry, no time. That didn't work for him.
See how that worked out?
No, it doesn't work.
Come on, George. He hated people. He hated being around, grubby, slobbering, Republicans in the heartland. I mean, again, we actually talked about this last time. I mean, he was the last patrician. Okay,
you're absolutely right. He absolutely hated campaigning. As was demonstrated by his famous looking at his watch in the middle of middle of a debate with Bill
Well, and
Clinton.
also they were talking about the war on drugs, and he did this a couple of times. It's like,
No,
uh,
yeah, that's right. I
yeah,
mean, he
when he did the looking at his watch, that ended his campaign.
That's it.
Be-
That ended his campaign. But that was the thing. I mean, he was essentially kind of an administrative person. He was, he knew how to administer. I mean, that was,
He was competent. He was
yeah, he was
competent.
competent. Exactly. He had a competent. He put together a competent team. They were all on the same page. That was his natural milieu of administrators. And then he had to go, hey, I now have to run for re-election, and I really don't know how to do it. I don't know what you're supposed to do. And as he was tanking in the polls, he finally called on James Baker, and his old friend from Texas. But Baker at that time was Secretary of State, and for him it was a come down. Hey, I'm Secretary of State. I get to gallivant around the world and be very important. Again, I'm dealing with Gorbachev, Yeltsin. Look at me. Now I have to go back and be a campaign manager again. It's like that's a stage in your life that you think you've gone beyond, but he had to because
No,
he's
no,
in
because he
trouble.
was campaign manager to become Secretary of State.
Right, right. That's it. That's it. Well, yeah, exactly. That's a stage you go through. When you're just simply a political hack, you're a campaign manager. Now, you're an important person. You don't want to go back to being a campaign manager, but he didn't have any choice because I think it was sometime in the spring of 1992. His boss was in real trouble, and he had to do something to rescue him. He didn't rescue him. He was beyond rescue. But anyway, going back to Biden, I agree with you, and that was my thought exactly. That I think that what they were thinking of is that he won't campaign, he'll just sit at home, and then count on the media to just to trash Trump. So they'll spend their time trashing Trump, and then he'll just simply get through, with the usual kind of cheating and whatnot, and then once he's over the finish line, Kamala Harris will be president. I think that was the plan. It went wrong, because of that disastrous debate performance. And then
Well,
they.
we'll never really know why he agreed to the debate because we talked about this at length. He's a convicted felon. He's a consummate liar. He was a failed president. Why should I share a stage with him?
Right,
You know who I am,
right, right,
okay? And well, you don't know who I am because the media was covering for me the entire
right.
time. I mean, another thing, George, that crossed my mind when this story broke. Then who the hell was running the country?
That's a very good. That's a very good point, and that's something that is the scandal, which was who was running the country, and that hasn't been answered.
It
I mean, these
hasn't.
are big issues that were going on. There's the war in Ukraine, so that's a serious matter. You waging a proxy war against Russia. Who was making those crucial decisions? Who was making all those decisions with all those HIMARS and ATACMS and that kind of thing? Who said, okay, fine, you want to use ATACMS, deep inside Russian territory? Who made that call?
Well,
Uh,
also, if we go on to the domestic front, George and I, every once in a while, George and I have an advantage over everybody else because we're just older, okay? And I remember Joe Biden is a segregationist. So who was behind all the woke stuff
right, right.
at the White House? The rainbows and all of this kind of stuff. Who that wasn't Joe Biden.
No, I know it
There's
was Joe
no way
Biden.
you can convince me he was on board
No,
for that.
no, I think it was Susan Rice and the people who worked for Susan Rice, or the people that she brought on in the White House. I assume Susan Rice was the conduit to Obama. So I think that somehow Obama was clearly in some way running the White House. That he was getting his people in there. Um, and then I think that's it. Then they think, hey, we're going to have a historic presidency. We're going to have Kamala Harris will be president. And I think that was that. And I think that was the plan. And then, um, what was remarkable, you remember that weekend when he finally stepped down, and then he announced, "Oh, well, Kamala Harris will be taking over. She's the party nominee." No, the party hadn't made any decision on this. He said, "Although she's the party nominee," and then immediately, there were these tweets sent out by the Clintons. "Yep, we're right behind Kamala," and then I think Obama came in right at the end, but everyone else had jumped in. "Yep, that's it. We're right behind Kamala." And then Kamala said, "Oh, by the end of the evening, thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate it. I am now the party nominee." And there was no debate, nothing within the party.
Yeah, but also throw into the mix the whole Autopen thing.
Yep.
And now it's just getting more and more confusing. When he wrote that infamous letter during the weekend, was that his hand? Was that his signature? Or was it the Autopen? Because that was a very, very, very weird letter.
It was
the
a
letter
very weird letter,
and
yeah.
everything else. I mean, it seems somebody wrote it up and got the Autopen
Right.
and said, here it is. Here's the document.
Right.
I don't know, everyone, but all of this is falling into place.
Right. Yeah, I think so. I think so. But that was the remarkable. But the remarkable thing is the supineness of the Democratic Party, and it was kind of outrageous at the time. Why did they all agree that Kamala Harris will be the party nominee? I mean, just because Biden says so. I mean, there's no basis whatsoever. There was nothing. The party didn't get round and say, "Look, I think we should have some kind of a convention and decide who should be the party nominee." I mean, something whereby it isn't just simply a diktat issued by someone, and we don't even know his mental competence or who issued this diktat, and suddenly everyone falls in line, and Kamala Harris is the nominee.
When they all knew he was an empty suit.
Yeah. Right. That's right. That's right.
I don't know. I mean, somebody is going to break ranks out of greed,
Right.
out of a sense of destiny. Somebody's going to spill all of the beans and connect all. We have so many dots, and
Right.
we're always very cautious. But the dots are being connected up here,
Right.
and I don't know. I mean, how ill is Joe Biden? I saw a clip, because I never watched this program called The View, but I saw a clip of it. I mean, again, it was Jill Biden that
Right.
came to the rescue because he
Right.
couldn't finish one sentence.
That's right. That's right. And that, yes.
That's elder abuse, really. I mean, I loathe Joe Biden, but you don't treat somebody like that.
Right. And it has to be elder abuse, because if he has cancer, then they knew about this, a long time ago. I mean, there's no question about it. This is not something that you can just suddenly find out at this stage. Somebody who has regular checkups, as particularly when it comes to prostate cancer, the easiest of the cancers to diagnose, they had to have known about this. And so their claim that it's at stage 4 level means that at a minimum it would have had to have been in him for 7 years. And clearly there's a lie. Now, you're supposed to. Everyone now feels very simple. Oh, Trump sent out this a truth. Well, we hope they wish him a speedy and successful recovery and so on. But clearly, this story makes absolutely no sense. It's as much a deceit as everything else.
Well, George, we have a comment here. Strange, the Harris-Biden thing already feels like ancient history. Well, first of all, it isn't ancient history, and second of all, there has to be a reckoning. Who was running the country? Okay. Right. Why was the media lying? So they're admitting it. I mean, they kind of gracefully said it at the that press the press association or whatever.
Oh, the White House Press Association.
Yeah. I mean,
White House correspondents.
in a very opaque way. But there has to be a reckoning here. And not that I want to give good advice to the Democratic Party, but I guess I will anyway. Is that you're not going to get past this? You've got to come clean with this. Okay,
Right.
I mean, Donald Trump is taking a wrecking ball to everything around him. Okay, and I can understand why a lot of people are upset about it. I understand it, but if you don't clean house, you don't have a post-mortem here, you're going to stay in the gutter. Okay.
Right. Yes. But that's the interesting thing, is that this reckoning, you always have these reckonings at the moment when it no longer matters. So now, whoa, that's clearly, something. The wool was pulled over our eyes. We were deceived. We were lied to.
George, how many times?
This is a standard. They always do this.
How many times they get to do it? Weapons of mass destruction, COVID,
Right.
51 intelligence officer, Hunter Biden laptop. I mean, I don't want to waste time on it, but I mean, you're sorry again? Really?
You're sorry again. Yeah. That's right. Well, we're not going to do it again until you do it again.
And you're doing it again.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the very insolence. I mean, of Jake Tapper, fake Tapper, as Trump called him, fake Tapper, writing a book. He, of all people, the person who went around attacking anyone who called into question Trump's mental competence, Biden's mental competence, and then how dare you? And then he writes this book. And I said, we were lied to. How can you have been lied to? Everybody else could see it. I mean, you didn't have to be, you don't have to be a doctor to see there is something wrong here. And moreover, they knew something was wrong during the 2020 campaign. This isn't just something, what he just emerged during his time in the Oval Office. It was clear during the 2020 campaign that there was something seriously wrong with him. Remember, even when during the debates on stage, people were sniggering at him, including Kamala Harris, is sniggering that he really doesn't know where he is. And there was, I think,
what was it? Juan Julio?
Julio, that's the one. Julio, I think, is it Julio? God, I've forgotten his surname.
Hey,
the one that said, you just said that. You're just repeating yourself. Because he was saying clearly that you're just not even. You're so out of it, you don't even realize that you just said it. A minute ago. So they all knew this, and the only reason that he won the nomination is that the party leaders decided that not one of these candidates on the stage can possibly defeat Donald Trump, with the exception of Joe Biden. And so they decided it has to be Biden, even though his mental incompetence was clear. So all the way back then, it was apparent that this person is mentally incompetent for that position. But the most important thing was to defeat Donald Trump. And then, of course, COVID. They played the whole COVID thing. Hey, sorry, can't do any campaigning. That's we can't put together too many people. Okay, Joe, you can stay in your basement and do nothing, and then. and wait to be anointed president. So this was, so the whole idea that we didn't know, You knew in 2020. Everybody knew in 2020 that there's something seriously wrong with him.
They're still doing it, George.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, the other interesting development was this election in Romania.
Ah, yes.
Romania.
Okay. Do you accept the outcome?
No, I don't.
I don't either.
No.
I wonder why, George. I wonder why.
So let's just look at the numbers. Now, the numbers are that.
I'm listening. I have to put them down here. I'm listening.
Okay. Well, let me just wait.
Go ahead.
Let's put a little bit of shade here. Yes. So the numbers were quite remarkable in that Simeon won 41% of the vote in the first round. Dan, the centrist, won 21% of the vote. Now, in the final result was Dan won 54% of the vote, and Simeon won 46%. Now, what that means is that of those voters who didn't vote for either Simeon or Dan in the first round because their votes went to other candidates, of those, 87% went for Dan. 87%. That is something that is impossible. It cannot happen. It cannot happen. It's just it's mathematically impossible. 87% went for Dan. This is a totally absurd, and made all the more absurd by the exuberant triumphalism of Brussels, including Ursula von der Leyen, who said, "This is a victory for democracy."
It's a victory for the EU.
That's it. Democracy has triumphed.
Democracy. Also, and there's still claims of Russian meddling. Amazing. So, did Russian meddling make that candidate win? I mean, where's
Yes.
your logic?
Now, right, exactly. So, first of all, let's take a look at what Pavel Durov sent out. This is a message from Pavel Durov, who was
he runs Telegram. Everyone. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. He was Telegram, and then he was famously arrested in France. He was supposedly going to have dinner at the Élysée Palace with Emmanuel Macron, and then en route he was arrested. So here's his this tweets that he sent out. It says, this spring at the Salon de Bataille in the Hôtel de Crillon, Nicholas Lerner, head of French intelligence, asked me to ban conservative voices in Romania ahead of elections. I refused. We didn't block protesters in Russia, Belarus, or Iran. We won't start doing it in Europe. So he says this is he names this person. He names him. He doesn't just say, "Oh, some guy came up to me in a hotel and said, don't put conservative voices on Telegram." He actually names the person who came up to him and said it. Then Durov says, a Western European government, guess which, approached Telegram asking us.
What is he showing? That's a baguette?
Yes. That's it, a baguette. Approached Telegram asking us to silence conservative voices in Romania ahead of today's presidential elections. I flatly refuse. Telegram will not restrict the freedom of Romanian users or block their political channels. You can't defend democracy by destroying democracy. You can't fight election interference by interfering in elections. You either have freedom of speech and fair elections or you don't, and the Romanian people deserve both. Now, one has to assume that if Durov was approached, an awful lot of other people were approached. I am sure, but the French are clearly very involved. The French have military forces in Romania. The French have a military base in Romania. So they have a particular interest in Romania.
And the largest NATO base in Europe is being constructed.
Exactly, it's being built in Romania. So this was, the most flagrant interference. And then one has to repeat, this election is totally fraudulent, absolutely fraudulent, since the person who won the election wasn't allowed, who won the real election, the election that was scheduled when they were to take place, when they were scheduled to take place last December. That election was canceled, and he was prevented from running in this election. So already the whole thing is fraudulent. And then you have these numbers that simply do not make any sense. That it cannot be in this way. It cannot happen. You can't go from 21% to 46% while your opponent just goes from 41% to 45%.
And there was the imperative here, and it's the following. if we allow democracy in Romania, a true reflection of the public will, then it could be a demonstration effect. You for conservatives, for the alternative right, you can do it. You can win, and they don't want that as a precedent. No, you can. They're telling you, no, you cannot win, and you will
Right.
not be allowed to win.
That's right.
So just get used to it. The Overton window is like this. We'll determine where it goes. Okay,
Right.
but you're not going to succeed. And again, the material issues of a French military base, NATO base. I mean,
Right.
this is they don't take any chances here.
No.
They were caught unawares.
Yeah.
Oh, because Romanians, they love all the trinkets from the West and all of the highfalutin ideas. No, they don't
Right.
actually.
Right.
Okay, it's a very
Right.
conservative country. Okay,
Right. Right.
and,
Yes.
and what they do is they have their elite capture, they get their people in, and if there was any outside interference, and there always is from Brussels, it's a given,
Right.
and they opened up the spigots and made sure. I have absolutely no confidence that this is a true
None.
election because
None at all.
no, numbers don't work that way. Okay,
No,
election
it cannot be. It simply cannot be. So we're going to find out. I'm sure in the coming days how they pulled this off. Whether it's quite likely that Romanians abroad were not allowed to vote. Because the polling places were closed, and even the polling places that were open, there weren't enough ballot papers. We're going to find out all kinds.
and there's a Moldovan element here
The
too.
Moldovan element is exactly, yeah. Because in fact, Simeon,
What percentage of Moldovans have Romanian passports? I don't. I think I saw
something like 80%.
Yeah, I don't
It's a
think it's
huge
that
number.
high. I mean,
Yeah, it's a huge number.
really significant.
It's a huge number, and moreover, the elite in Moldova all have Romanian passports. All of them, Maya Sandu and the rest of them, they all have Romanian passports. And if Simeon had warned at some point, actually during the past few days, that there's a big campaign going on within Moldova to to secure the vote in Romania.
Think about it. It was Moldova that went to the polls.
It was Moldova that went to the polls, and but of course Maya Sandu herself is no stranger to stolen elections. I mean, we did a number of podcasts on how they pulled that off, an election she was destined to lose, and they made sure that she won by preventing the Moldovan diaspora from voting. That's it. Oh, sorry, we just don't have enough polling places open for you in Russia. Sorry, there it is. Oh, and the ones that are open, we only have 5,000 ballots. Yeah, but there are several 100,000 people wanting to vote. The printing presses weren't working. We just couldn't print enough ballot papers. Sorry. Another triumph for democracy. Ursula von der Leyen. Yeah, fantastic. The Moldovan election was a great victory for democracy. Now, the EU is very, very interesting because they always do this. Every time they steal an election outright, they immediately say, fantastic victory for democracy. When an election goes against them, fraud, bogus. There's no credibility at all in these elections. Like Georgia, they lost badly in Georgia. No, that was it. Fraud. Putin, Russian interference. It was all Putin. Putin stole the election in Georgia. So that the contempt for democracy within the EU is so strong that it's now a joke. I mean, it really is that when Ursula von der Leyen sends out these tweets congratulating the Romanians on their victory for democracy, it's just a joke. I mean, it's just funny.
Everybody knows who Matt Taibbi is, and he was part of a satirical newspaper magazine called The Exile, and they had these satirical columns. They were absolutely hysterical, and they would have book reviews and film reviews. And so when there was like The Sopranos and other mafia films, like The Godfather, whatever, they would have Joseph Stalin write the review. He wrote I mean, obviously it was satirical, and they'd have
Right.
Stalin's picture, and he would talk about how like Tony Soprano, his strategy of cadre de control, and all. It was really, really funny. I think it should be resurrected, and we should have Stalin doing a Western election
That's
critiques.
right. I think so. Exactly. Congratulations. I
Good
congratulate
use
the
of
Romanian people.
good use of social media, Moldova, and under the direction of Ursula von der Leyen. Because the reason why I come up with this because it's turned into satire now.
Right.
I
Yep.
mean, this is just really absurd.
Yep.
I mean, AFD, they're a terrorist, extremist organization. All over the newspapers, everybody's talking about it. And then
Right.
maybe we'll pull it back a little bit.
Right.
What they're doing is they're saying we have the power to go after them, or we
Right.
can back away. AFD, maybe you want to reconsider, because what it is that it's threatening them, okay? And they
Right.
want individuals within to say, hey, we got to cool it, we got to back off a little bit, we got to
Right.
conform a little bit more. They have so many different strategies,
Right.
okay,
No,
to,
yeah,
to generate consensus.
That's right. That's right. What happened in the case of Germany is that Germany got such bad notices from abroad over what they did with AFD that they had to back away a little bit. But it's a temporary retreat.
Right.
If the AFD is poised to win, then they're going to come back with this whole extremist thing. But there was so much criticism that Germany received, particularly from the United States. The Germans always get nervous about falling out with the Americans, but it was just so from Trump, from Vance, about the idea that you're moving towards outlawing a political party, that they had to back away from that. So it's I mean, to be honest, the key was obviously is to move Georgescu out, because Georgescu, I think, was a serious candidate. I don't think Simeon was a very impressive candidate. I think he didn't run a particularly good campaign. I mean, he's trying to be Donald Trump. Always a mistake to do that. Not because anything about Trump, but you've got to be your own man. You can't be somebody else. And I think when he started doing the whole "Make Romania Great Again," and he's going to pursue the kind of Trumpian policy. The main thing is I've got to keep in with Trump. It just doesn't work, because you've got to, it has to be homegrown. And then he did something similar with doing the Orban thing, and that of course does raise it also an interesting question, because Orban himself has a tough re-election fight on his hands, which is going to come next year. And the EU is already interfering quite liberally within the system. This whole thing with Ukraine, I think this has been engineered by the EU. This rift, they're now this arrest of some Hungarians in Ukraine, and now this mutual expulsion of diplomats, and in particular, it's clear that the opposition, the one who's been anointed by the EU, he's kind of taking the side of Romania. Of Ukraine. And what is the EU? The EU is also applying pressure against Hungary. The economy here is not good. And one of the reasons it's not good is it's coming under great pressure from the EU. There's no money coming from that's it. The EU has basically cut off all funding for Hungary. and the EU does indeed support all of the opposition parties, and you have something like a color revolution in the making here. Every day there's a demonstration. There's yet another demonstration against Orban. And you think, well, it's like no one else has anything to do except have these anti-Orban demonstrations. So now I'm not saying it's going to succeed, and Orban, of all people, is very much aware of how these elections are stolen, how you stage these color revolutions. That's why, there's a legislation now pending, along Russian lines on kind of a foreign agent's registration. Basically, you're going to have to register if you're getting your money from abroad. So, I mean, already, Orban is very much aware of that the EU is going to pull out all the stops to try to secure his defeat next year. The problem is that he has been around for quite a long time. Now he's been 2010, and the public is what it is. The public is fickle, and they do get tired of leaders. So this guy that who has been anointed by the EU, this Peter Magyar, he seems very, very unimpressive, but that doesn't mean he won't win. I mean, I think there's a chance that he will win.
Peter Magyar?
Peter Magyar, yeah.
His name is Peter Hungary?
Peter Hungary, yeah. Peter Hungarian, yes.
Peter Hungarian, okay.
Yes. Yes.
Somebody hit the tip jar. I think you should give a shout out.
Oh, yes. Kenal. No, thank you so much. That's really very, very generous. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Two dissidents guys, they do a cowbell. George and I don't have a cowbell. Okay,
we have these savage dogs.
Maybe we should George. You need to kind of integrate a few sound drops. Okay, so it's a little extra. Okay,
that's right. Exactly. You got it. Yeah, but thank you. Really appreciate. Really appreciate. Your general.
Don't talk about it too much. They're sleeping. Okay. I'll never hear the end of it. Okay.
I want it. Or everything to me. Give me. There's the other thing is. We've been sounding quite optimistic about the Iran talks, but the strange thing that's happened is that Steve Witkoff seems to have changed his tune. Where a few weeks ago he was talking about allowing enrichment, that there shouldn't really be a problem about allowing Iran enrichment, but now he seems to be saying that that's a red line for us.
And plus we had Lindsey Graham up to no good as usual,
yes,
corralling the U.S. Senate and a good part of the GOP in the House. That's their red line. So. Trump he's seeing, a revolt in the making. Okay.
Right.
Or what they want to do is create political facts on the ground. This does not bode well. This does not bode well at all. Because what is going to happen is that it'll be stillborn, and that will give the lobby and all of its acolytes time to regroup and to start applying endless pressure on Donald Trump. This is going to be a tough week for Donald Trump, everybody.
I think so, and that's really the problem. So there was this letter that was written by all these terrible Republicans. Apparently, let me show you this letter that's was written to Trump. And it's signed by every single Republican in the Senate except for Rand Paul. And then here it says, "You and your administration have therefore correctly drawn a red line against any deal that allows Iran to retain any enrichment capability. Your national security presidential memorandum on Iran stated that Iran's nuclear program, including its enrichment and reprocessing related capabilities and nuclear capable missiles, poses an existential danger to the United States and the entire civilized world. And Special Presidential Envoy Steve
They
Witkoff.
couldn't say it. They couldn't say Israel, could they?
Absolutely not. Envoy recently re-emphasized that for any final arrangement to work, Iran must stop and eliminate its nuclear enrichment and weaponization program. But the problem is this, that for Trump, really, it actually shouldn't be that difficult. It doesn't really matter what all these senators, I think what 177 Republicans in the House say, because that's not where Republican voters are. It's not where Democratic voters are, and it's definitely not where the MAGA base is. So it really shouldn't be that difficult. I mean, okay, you've got these all these swamp creatures who are writing these letters. Then you've got the Israel lobby. They're but first of all, everyone is sick to death of the Israel lobby. I mean, it's just I think it's a real problem now. People, Israel is becoming so unpopular, so toxic inside the United States that just to say, oh, Israel is against this, and
And
yeah,
well, you're right. You're absolutely right, because public opinion is on Trump's side on this. I mean, it's confusing as their messaging is. They need to really tighten that up. It's a real weakness of this administration, and the base is completely behind Trump on this. So, I mean, and plus, Trump doesn't have to propose a treaty that the Senate would have to approve. So it can be something else.
No.
Okay. What does Trump want to avoid? War. That's it.
Exactly.
It's really, really simple.
That's exactly it.
And they can apply a lot of this pressure all they want, but he still has to give the call, and he will not do it. He will not do it.
Right. That's right. So he has the base who says to him, do not go down this path. We don't want any wars. We don't want to go back to the Bush-Cheney years. I mean, that was just catastrophic for the Republicans. So he's got those people. He's got Tucker Carlson, Steve Bannon, Marjorie Taylor Greene, all of these influences around him, telling him, do not go down this path. And that's very, very similar to the situation as you described with Lindsey Graham. Now, we know Lindsey Graham is a warmonger. He has been a warmonger. That's what he is. And so, if you looked at these Sunday talk shows, they all bring up, Lindsey Graham, he's getting this whole, he's putting together this the sanctions, and apparently he's already got 80 senators who are on board. So it's veto proof, and everybody's very excited, and the media all very excited. Lindsey Graham is a warmonger. He's doing this in order to provoke a war. That's what he's always done. That's his whole raison d'etre. He's John McCain's mini me. He was just if John McCain isn't available, well, there's Lindsey Graham. He was a kind of shameless, bogus career that he launched, or just simply being a stand-in for John McCain. So then you have to say, well, what's Donald Trump doing with him? Well, why does Donald Trump even have him around? I mean, he knows. I mean, Donald Trump, he denounces the neocons, and then you have this creature around you.
It's better to have him in the tent than outside. I think that's his rationale. Okay.
Yes.
Look, okay. This isn't just posturing, everyone. I'm looking at some of the comments. No, this is an issue of war and peace. That's not posturing. This is very serious. That's very, very serious business. Trump will not let his legacy be that he started a general war in the Middle East. All of those nice little friends that he met last week, they're all be incinerated. Okay? And they all know it.
Right.
And that's why it's not going to come from Trump. It doesn't mean there won't be enormous pressure and a false flag. I don't know if you saw it, George, but it was last week, beginning of last week, Fox News had this breaking news: a new nuclear facility has been found in northern Iran. Oh my God! I mean, talk about just tone deaf propaganda. It's just absolutely absurd what they were reporting. We all know where that came from. We all know, but nobody else touched it. I was really surprised. They just let it go. It's so transparently propaganda.
That's right. That's right. And that's the thing with when you have these people like Lindsey Graham, who really doesn't, he does not sign on. He never has signed on to the Trump's agenda. He has always been opposed to it. Trump knows this. He knows what Lindsey Graham is about. Now, and we talked about this yesterday. I don't understand why Trump cannot to say to Lindsey Graham, if you go ahead with this, I will definitely primary you. I'm definitely going to support your primary opponent. I doubt whether Lindsey Graham can take a primary.
A pretty reddish state, okay?
It's a reddish state, yeah. Which means
my point is, if Trump and the MAGA movement throw their full force behind someone primarying Lindsey Graham, they have a big chance of winning.
Yes, that's right.
This is not a purple state, everyone.
It's not a purple state. And you remember that time when he was at a meeting, when he was actually campaigning for Trump, and he came booing. That was in South Carolina. That wasn't some other state. His home state. They were booing him. So he really goes ahead with this. Then I just, absolutely Trump say, I will primary you. Absolutely I'm going to primary you.
I remember there was kind of a cheesy drama about a police officer. Is he going to do what he's told to do? He says, well, what is it? He's been bought, but I don't know if he's been paid. Okay, and so it's kind of the psych you out here. Okay, because Lindsey Graham has obviously been paid. Okay, he's been paid for a very long time. I'd really like to see his stock portfolio. All of the arms manufacturers and all these Israeli tech companies probably give him sweetheart loan shares and stuff like that. Right. This guy's up to the gills. Okay, so he's not a young man anymore. Okay, he'll cash out really, really well. Okay, and who knows how many boards he'll be on and think tanks. Well taken care of. Okay,
he's not going to be poor.
He can't read the room. He just can't read the room because he's been bought off. Okay,
right
now, Trump, with all this stuff going on with the tariffs and the economy and stuff like that, he's got to really be listening to the base, because that's the only thing that's going to save him. Okay,
exactly.
Obviously, he hasn't tamed Washington.
Exactly, and that's why he should be making his calculations, because you've got somebody like Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio, he doesn't have a problem about escalating. I mean, he's not going to say it because he's Trump's Secretary of State, but he doesn't have a problem. I mean, he was in fact asked on one of the Sunday talk shows. He says, "Oh well, Lindsey Graham, what do you think of that? This Lindsey Graham bill?" And said, "Well, we told the Russians, this is coming down the pipeline. It's going to happen. But that's good for Marco Rubio, because when he makes his exit after the midterms and prepares his run, he said, well, we tried to work with the Russians, but I told Trump, you can't trust Putin. I told him." But he didn't listen to my advice. So he's basically preparing the ground for his run. But Trump knows that if he continues with this, then that's it. Essentially his presidency will be like the George W. Bush presidency, got endless wars that he's unable to get himself out of. And Trump knows this. So, he has to absolutely, deal with this problem of, by these hawks whose the one thing they want is escalation.
Something we've talked about over the last couple of weeks, and I think we have some more data to comment on, is it looks to me, George and I have been entertaining the following thesis, is that when it comes to the so-called rift between the United States and Israel, which I stress so-called, it looks more and more clear to me that Trump is not going to fight a war against Iran for Israel. I think that's pretty clear.
No, I think so.
However, George and I have posited is that whatever Netanyahu and his right-wing government wants to do to the Palestinians, well, that's their business, okay? Because it's talk, and again, I think it's just talk of displacing 1 million Palestinians to Libya. I mean, I don't know.
I don't believe that.
I mean, logistically, just think
exactly. Logistically, I mean, it's just mind-boggling. There isn't even a government in Libya. I mean, it's like
no, there's two or three. There are 2 or 3 governments.
Exactly. They don't have any money. I mean, there's no government. There's no infrastructure. There's just nothing in Libya. I mean, the sums involved are just astronomical, because none of these Gulf states, they're not going to contribute any money for the resettlement. So it's all going to have to come out of the U.S. Treasury. Well, bang goes your plans to cut.
Well, what happened to Doge? What happened to Doge?
Yeah, exactly. So
and everybody, I just want to make clear, Trump talking about $1 trillion trip to of incoming money to the United States after his Gulf. These countries don't have that money. Okay, I mean, this was just kabuki theater. I mean, it was he wants a big show, we'll give him a big show. A memorandum of understanding of investing in the he can sign a memorandum. I can do it on behalf of Botswana if you want. Okay, I mean nobody. It doesn't. It doesn't. It's nothing more than in 1% intent. Okay.
Well, some of that money will come. I mean, they do have some money.
But a lot of that money, George, a lot of that money is already in the United States. Okay.
Right.
Their money is already there. Okay.
Right.
So,
but I think look, they want to get into this whole artificial intelligence thing, and I think that there's going to be a lot of business there. I think they want. This is a big thing for these Gulf states, that they want to become hubs of artificial intelligence. And that in itself may be a problem. I mean, that's for Trump down the road. Hey, you're allowing the secrets of artificial intelligence to go.
Mar-a-Lago would be that hub. Mar-a-Lago should be that hub. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So that's gonna be a problem. But nonetheless, I think there is a rift with Israel. I mean, look, J.D. Vance was supposed to visit Israel. He decided not to go. And then the usual kind of scheduling. I mean, I couldn't make it. So that's Trump didn't go. J.D. Vance didn't go. Israel is a problem. I mean, it's an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment for Trump.
It's becoming toxic.
It's becoming toxic. There's no value added in being seen in Israel.
Bombing tents and starving children. What's the value of that? Of burning tents full of families and starving children? Well, there's no upside from that. I mean, no one from the advertising world can solve that problem. Okay.
No. That's right. Anyway, let's take a look at our friends on our locals page. These are the people who make sure that the dogs are well fed and cared for and satisfied. To the extent that they can be satisfied. These dogs are never satisfied, but at least keeps them happy for a while. So thank you everybody who has contributed. And here we have Vic Shakapopoulos says, "Dear Peter, did you treat your eye problem in Dr. Assad's clinic? I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe he'll go back to his original profession. He's got time on his hands, that's for
He's
sure.
got time on his hands. Yeah. Um, I mean, I guess you'd need probably do a refresher course. I mean, it's probably a long time since he's actually practiced.
And he never
Yeah,
wanted to go into politics. His brother was
no.
supposed to do that.
His brother was supposed to do it, yeah, and then his brother was killed. So yeah. Anyway, Judy, our good friend Judy Hotchkiss, always very good to see you, Judy. And thank you very much, Judy, as always, for your generosity. And Judy says, once while Biden was giving a press conference on pollution, he mumbled, "I and others have cancer because of this." Now, I remember that happened in 2022, and
Yeah.
it was noted. People thought, well, what does he mean by that? That he has cancer? And and it was dismissed. And I also dismissed it at the time because I thought, well, this is just Biden. Biden just goes off and says these things. I mean, he says, I have cancer, it had about as much truth value as, I tried to go and visit Nelson Mandela in prison. I mean, well, why, why believe this? And even now, I mean, maybe he was revealing something at that moment, but he may also have been talking off the top of his head. He thought, hey, why don't I tell a good story about pollution and say, yeah, with the thing about Biden is that he always brings himself into everything.
Yeah.
Everything is really always about him, and either about him or his late son Bo. His late son Bo was killed in the war. His late son Bo, died trying to rescue, a damsel in distress or something. So everything with him is
He learned that from Obama. Everything is always about Obama.
right. That's right. And he is kind of like that character. I don't I don't really watch Saturday Night Live, but Saturday Night Live did have this character called, I think, Penelope. And the whole thing about I think her name was Penelope. The whole thing about her is that whoever said anything, she always immediately upped the ante. So if somebody said, I had a birthday party the other day, and 20 people showed up. So, I had a birthday party yesterday and 50 people showed up. So in every whatever the circumstance, she was always one up on everyone else, and that was my impression on Biden. That he just wants people to think about him. Oh, I
Yeah,
have
because
cancer.
he was just, by a fluke, he ended up in the Senate at a young age. And,
Yep.
he's just a slob. And he's always
Yes.
wanted to better himself. It's very interesting. He's, Nikita Khrushchev, if you read his memoirs, which were quite sanitized. But I mean, he had a huge inferiority complex. I mean,
Yep.
Trotsky helped him out a lot by getting rid of the intellectuals. Okay,
Right.
but I mean,
Right.
but he always couldn't break from being a peasant. Okay, and that's
Right.
what Joe
Yeah.
Biden was. He was just a peasant.
Yes, that's right. That's right. I was at top of my law school class, and he has to say this. It's like for him, as if, who the hell cares? You are now a powerful figure in the U.S. Senate. Everyone in the country envies you. They want to be a powerful figure in the Senate, chairman of all kinds of committees. But no, he has to lie that he was at the top of his class in law school. This is a constant
Yeah, I
bluster
mean,
from.
there's an interesting comparison because Trump has a similar problem, but it's not. I don't think it comes from malice. He thinks that when he makes these statements about himself, he thinks it should be true, and since it
Right,
should be true, it's okay. All right, but I don't see him as a malicious liar. Okay,
right,
I
right.
just see him as a sales guy.
But
Okay,
there isn't also something as disgusting. Now, like, I mean, when I was about the cancer, maybe he was telling the truth for once on that time, or maybe he was just exaggerating, wanting to say about, I have cancer. But the way he uses Bo, and it's very sad. Bo, his son, died at a young age, but he's constantly using it as a prop, in order to tell a good story. And I think that is disgusting. I mean, you have a personal, family tragedy, and exploiting a family tragedy in such a shameless way, essentially to promote yourself, I think it's just
Well,
really
also
repugnant.
maybe in a very weird psychological way, um, he wanted to be Bo because Bo was brought up in a nice environment, a big house, prestigious environment, the best schools, the best sports car, whatever. I mean, Joe never had that growing up.
No,
According to him, anyway. So,
right.
but I mean, it was the Bo was the Joe. Bo was supposed to be the Joe Biden that succeeded,
Right,
okay?
right, right,
Because
right,
I think Joe Biden just has a very low opinion of himself. I mean, I think he has an issue of self-loathing.
right.
I mean, he knew during the Obama administration, everybody laughed at him behind his back, okay? He knew that.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. Yeah. No, I think Bo was, like the analogy with the Corleone family. Bo was the sort of the Michael Corleone. Hunter was the Santino. I mean, just or Hunter more the Fredo of the family. But Bo was the one who was supposedly being pushed for great things. And he actually had a more respectable career and everything in the way that Hunter was a thoroughly unrespectable
Just
guy.
degenerate.
Um, yes, exactly. Anyway, as always, thank you so much, Judy, for that. Richard Phillips says, strange about the Harris Biden thing already feels like ancient history. It does, even though it's less than a year that happened. So it's only 10 months since
Well,
Biden
it's
dropped out.
interesting. I don't know if there's a correlation, but Kamala Harris is slowly but surely reintroducing herself.
Yes, yes, she is. I still have my doubts, though, that the party will turn to her. I think that they
No,
have a bad feelings about what happened
no.
last year.
That will wreck. That will. I mean, a party is already wrecked. I mean, this Hogg guy. Remember him?
Yeah,
Um, and even though I think he's a parasite from beginning to end, he does say some very common sense things about the Democratic Party. Okay, to his advantage, of course. Okay,
right.
there is self-interest there, but no, I mean I mean, you have to have internal party rules. Like if you're over 78, just check out. Okay, I mean, this is just outrageous, particularly since there's at least flamboyant Republicans out there on the bench. Okay, I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Think of what you want of her. That's fine with me. But she's genuinely popular. Okay,
Yes,
it's real. It's
yes,
real.
yes.
And
That's true.
and what they do across the aisle is they generate generate excitement. Okay, I
Yes.
mean,
No, yeah, I think it's a very good point because the thing about Marjorie Taylor Greene is that they all know she is, as you said, she's genuine. Now, when you get Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, no one really thinks that she's genuine. They say, no, she's an absolute opportunist.
well,
You
there
know,
are many
if
there are
the
many.
party leaders tell her to vote like that, she will vote whatever. Then she'll do her thing. Oh, I support the rights of the Palestinians, or I'm with Bernie and all this. It's phony. Everyone can see it's phony. You're just trying to show that you're some kind of a radical when they know you're not a radical. You're just very ambitious, and when push comes to shove, you will do what the party leaders tell you to do. But you don't think that about no one thinks that about Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, she openly rebels against her party leaders.
Yeah. Anyway, with um, AOC, there are a lot of people believe that she was a project from the beginning. Okay,
I think so too. I think so. I absolutely think so.
George George
Anyway,
George Santos must be so envious. I just love his story. I
I do.
can't
Me too.
get enough of it. When he's in the news, I always read it. And just like this guy. I mean, think of him what you will. He made it into Congress on a
He
slew
made
of.
it, and won in New York. No, that's no mean feat for a Republican to win in New York. He won the congressional district in New York, and really, I mean, I think I think he was ridiculously harshly treated. I don't think he deserves 7 years. Maybe he deserves time, but 7 years is ridiculously excessive for what he did. But yeah, I mean, he is a character. Anyway, Richard Phillips says, in my humble opinion, Biden's wife and the Oval Office was running the country. Well, I agree. I think Jill Biden was very much involved in that. Anytime Biden was out of it, they would turn to his wife. That's how things normally go with an ill political leader. Yeah, that's kind of how it went with Woodrow Wilson. Certainly, his wife was running the country. With FDR also to a certain extent. Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah, but I
agree.
mean, the real question is, I don't doubt, when it comes to brass tacks and, menus and, who can come into the office, Jill probably had a lot of control over that. But what I want to know is the Obama input. That's what
Oh
I
yeah,
think.
right. Well, yeah, yeah, exactly. Um,
Think about the logic of it. I mean, Barack Obama won 2 elections. Okay, the Republican candidates were so outrageously weak and poor.
right.
It's almost a political crime. I
Yes.
mean, he he had luck, a lot of luck.
He,
Okay,
a lot
and
of luck.
my point is that by the time he'd left office, over 1,000 Democratic office holders had lost. I mean, here's a guy that had no coattails at
No,
all.
no.
Okay,
It's
Trump's
actually, yeah,
Trump's spotty. Okay,
that's
but
right.
it's better than Obama's.
It's even worse than that with Obama because, for Obama to get into the Senate, he actually first had to get into the Senate, and in the primary race in Illinois and in the general election in Illinois, his opponents were defeated by sexual scandals. Sexual scandals actually defeated each of his opponents, so that actually got him into the Senate. Otherwise, he wouldn't have even got to the Senate. And then he had the good fortune to run against Hillary Clinton, which was just absolutely toxic in every way. I mean, everyone hated Hillary Clinton, so that was no great no trick. Edwards was pushed out again through a scandal. Edwards, I think, was a much more impressive figure than Obama, but then there was the scandal over his love child and everything. So that got Edwards out of the way, and then as you said, John McCain. Anybody in America could have defeated John McCain, and then 2012, Mitt Romney, Richie Rich. Anyone could have defeated that. So yeah, Obama was, and so the legend that was created that he's this invincible political force. No evidence for that whatsoever. He just had luck at every step of the way, or somebody was making sure that he had luck at every step of the way.
Okay, I see a comment from Vic Snakeopopoulos.
Shakopopoulos.
Okay, what would the two of you agree or disagree with Marx about? Do you have any favorite Marxist philosopher? You want to pitch that one first, or I can take it?
All right, you want to take that?
I'm a great admirer of Karl Marx's work. Okay, I mean, when you get a good translation of it in English,
Right.
German into English is just this doesn't work. You can't stay awake. Okay, but I think Marx had a brilliant mind. I think he understood a great the basics that we understand about capitalism. We know from Karl Marx in many ways. He was too deterministic. I think that culture wasn't accounted for, which is very important. Okay. People do act in their life informed by cultural ideas, not just by economic ideas. One of the problems with Karl Marx is he fetishized the working class. He didn't understand that what the working class wanted to do was get out of the working class. He never understood that, and that's a culture.
Well, I mean, I think that this is where you got the problem with Marx, which is why he had in the end a very baneful influence on history, was his cult of revolution, and that predated his study of political economy and capitalism. He was a revolutionary first. Back in the day when he was a young Hegelian, He didn't know anything about the working class. He didn't know anything about capitalism, but he was already a revolution. And that's really the point, is that, well, yeah, okay, you can have a revolution, you can destroy the existing order. What do you do then? What do you do the next day? And he never really bothered thinking about that. And so, and therefore, the question of socialism, I mean, at least other socialist thinkers, Fourier, Saint-Simon, Comte, or whatever, they actually gave some thought to the question of, well, what is socialism like? What will socialism? He never did that. He said, well, I don't waste my time on those things.
And Lenin had the same problem. I mean,
Right.
he understood the calculus of power. Okay,
Right.
he understood how to create a revolutionary change, but he had no idea what to do the day after. Okay, it's not widely noted anymore, but it was called State and Revolution. Read that. That is a philosophical nightmare. It is philosophically vacant. Okay,
Right.
I mean, but his other stuff was, that's why it's still read by people that are interested in communism, socialism, whatever you want to call it. But nobody's quoting State and Revolution.
Right. But what was interesting about State and Revolution, which is his most dishonest, a piece of writing, he wrote this in 1917 at the time of the revolution. So in other words, the old order had collapsed, and he knew that no one would have any time for anyone talking about what he wanted to talk about, was building up a new state structure, because he was nothing if not an authoritarian. So he pretended at that moment to be in favor of essentially kind of the arguments presented by the anarchists. The anarchists are basically anarcho syndicalism. We don't need a state. We can have just self-governing communities. That's where he talks about the withering away of the state. He didn't believe that for 1 minute, but
he wanted the state.
Of course he did, but he did that in 1917 because he knew that no one wanted to talk about, democratic centralism and all the other things that he really cared about. So he pretended, oh yeah, we're going to have the withering away of the state, and we'll have self-governing communities. We'll have all power to the Soviets. The Soviets are going to run things. There's not going to be a communist party making sure everybody toes the line. It was a dishonest piece of writing, and that's why it's so untypical of everything else that Lenin wrote.
Well, also the latter part of the question, what Marxist thinkers do, I like. Walter Benjamin is a very interesting writer. He wrote some very interesting essays. He died very early in life. He was killed by the Nazis, I think in 1940.
I think he actually committed suicide.
I'm sorry, he committed.
He tried to escape and he committed suicide.
There's some very interesting essays there. One of the reasons why I like it is that not only is it interesting philosophical thinking, it's very literary too. It's very easy. It's very
literary, though.
Very, very well written.
Right.
George, we have a super chat there. Maybe you want to pitch that one.
The super chat, which was yes, a Psinuk. So thanks, gentlemen. It was always good to see you, Psinuk. He says, did you see Finland is going to use frozen Russian assets to supply Ukraine with ammo? Are these the same people begging for a 30-day ceasefire? What a joke. How does Zelensky get to fly all over the world unimpeded? Too much to see him in Rome yesterday. Yes, he was in. Yeah, he was in Rome.
Well,
yeah,
nominally he's a Jew, we're told. Okay, why is he hanging around the Vatican so much? I guess he wants to see J.D. Vance or something, or Marco Rubio, which both of them are Catholic. Right. Okay, I just find it really weird, and I don't need to be a badass about all of this. Okay, but when you go to St. Peter's, you go to the Basilica, wear a suit and tie. Come on. I mean, show a little bit of respect. Just a little bit, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, I just find that appalling, okay?
Yeah.
So to answer you, yes, these are the same people that are sending ammo and calling for a 30-day ceasefire. Exactly.
And this that's exactly right. And this is where it gets very interesting, because we all of us are supposed to be so stupid as to accept this notion that anyone, Finland, Estonia, Ursula von der Leyen, Macron, all the are serious about a 30-day ceasefire. So we're supposed to, act really stupid. They just want a 30-day ceasefire when we know exactly what they're going to do during those 30 days. We know exactly. I mean, then there's no mystery in it. Yeah, they're going to absolutely pour in everything that they have, into Ukraine, and then maybe they'll extend it for another 30 days in order to pour in even more, and then Ukraine will be in a stronger position at the end of a month or 2 months or 3 months, and then the whole thing restarts again. Why would anyone accept those terms? So this is the point where we're supposed to act stupid. Oh, well, if Putin is serious about peace, he should accept these ceasefire, when you know that you're not interested in the ceasefire. You just want to prepare for the next round of fighting. Absolutely. The 30-day ceasefire, and they want to use the Russian assets to supply Ukraine with ammo.
And what is the security threat that Finland faces up until they join NATO? None.
None whatsoever.
Very well established, good bilateral relationship because it stayed neutral.
Exactly. That's right. They were treated very well after the war, incidentally. Much better, incidentally, than almost everybody else in Russia's, the Soviet Union's neighborhood who invaded the Soviet Union. I mean, everyone else, they got whacked over the head. Romania, Hungary, whatever. They got whacked. It wasn't too bad, but at least they did have to have communist regimes. Finland didn't have a communist regime. Finland did have to cede some territory, but it didn't have a communist regime. All it needed to do was to maintain neutrality, and the Soviet Union respected Finland's neutrality. So Finland really did have it pretty good, where it could have been much worse. The Soviets could have absolutely insisted on a communist regime in Finland, just as it did in Hungary and Romania. Anyway, Mojo 1982 says, last week Estonia attempted to stop and redirect a Russian-bound oil tanker. Yesterday, Russia detained an oil tanker that left an Estonian port on its way to Rotterdam. Has Russia finally lost patience with the Baltic Chihuahuas? Will Russia test Article 5 in the Baltic states?
What it is reciprocity. Reciprocity.
Right.
Reciprocity.
Right. That's right.
No, this shadow fleet is a figment of the West's imagination. Right. They're involved in piracy. So Russia will say, well, if you're going to pester our fleet, our legitimate ships, we're going to start making it uncomfortable for you. Let's go. Let's see who has the wherewithal. Let's see who can go the distance. That's what this is about.
Exactly, because the point about this shadow fleet is that they aren't doing anything wrong. These are tankers, carrying Russian oil. They don't have Western insurance. They have Russian insurance, but they don't have Western insurance. But one of the reasons why they don't have Western insurance is because of Western sanctions. Russia was banned from the Western insurance market. That's why they don't have Western insurance. They are in international waters. They're not going into anyone's territorial waters. So what Estonia is doing is flagrantly illegal. It's flagrant piracy. Now, NATO wants to go down this path of invoking Article 5. Well, we'll see if there are any takers for that. You really want to do this? Go to war with Russia over the right of seizing vessels in international waters. Vessels were not doing anything wrong. They're not violating any law, whatever. EU sanctions have no.
Whose security are they threatening?
Right. Exactly. And so it's absolutely a ridiculous thing. I have no doubt that Estonia wants to provoke a war. There's no doubt that's what they want to do. They want to kind of create an incident. They want Russia to react, and then once Russia has reacted, then then they can hey, we're under attack. We're under attack. Article 5. Article 5. I mean that's their that's the plan. I don't think there's going to be too many takers in NATO land for such nonsense.
Yeah, I want you to go fight him. That's the Baltic Chihuahua. Fight him.
Yeah, that's right. Let's you and him fight. So Vic Shakapopoulos asks, apropos of what we were saying, but do you reject revolution as a tactic in general? I mean, I think the problem is, I mean, I don't know whether in general, you'll have to think, there probably are exceptions, but I think that the easiest thing in the world is simply to destroy things. I mean, it's just so easy. Just boom, okay, we'll just outlaw everything and we're going to start all over again. Yeah, we don't want any of these. We don't want the family.
Pol Pot tried that.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. Well, and the Bolsheviks in the early days were just like that. Okay, we're outlawing marriage. We're outlawing the family. We're just going to start all over again. All these. Every traditional institution. Let's get rid of that. On what basis? Well, because we read Marx and we had Engels and the origins of family, private property in the state. No private property, no family, no mothers, fathers, children. Everything is. We're going to start afresh. And what happens is people, suddenly they want to go back to the old way of doing things. And the Bolsheviks had to reverse course very early on, but not until a lot of destruction had taken place. But they had to reverse course and had to go back to traditional institutions. So that's why I'm very wary of these kinds of these intellectuals kind of posturing and calling for revolution. Let's start all over again.
When intellectuals are calling for a revolution, take your money out of the bank, buy some food stuff, and get a bomb shelter. Okay. No, that's such an interesting question, but you need to really unpack it. I mean, when you say revolution, mean violent revolution, the use of force and destruction, as George was saying? No, not me. I think modern history tells us that it ends badly. Okay, but that's a general answer to a very general question.
That's right. It ends badly, and particularly the Russians. And the Russians really are very, very sensitive on this. I mean, it's like they're still kind of living in the shadow of the Bolshevik Revolution. It's been more than 100 years, and it's just so ingrained in everything in Russia. All the extraordinary effects that it had on every aspect of society. So that's why they're so wary of anything that's going to just shake things up. Because hey, we're going to go back to that. We're going to go back to all this chaos, the killing, the destruction, and then we're going to have we have another 100 years in order to recover from that. So I think that's why people who have lived under revolution say no thanks, we don't want to do this again.
Great.
All right. Well, Peter, do you have any parting thoughts? I mean, I think we're going to soon be discussing the the substance of the phone call. I guess Trump after Putin will speak with Zelensky, and then we're going to have the readouts and the interpretations.
I just wonder what the calculus was. I mean, who gets to talk to Trump last?
I think it's NATO. I think the NATO. Macron.
Everyone. I'm not expecting that. Okay.
No. All
right.
We're lucky.
To be determined. Okay. To be continued.
If we're lucky, maybe they'll at least they'll schedule a meeting. I think if we're lucky, but I'm also not really expecting very much. But it's nice to hope for something.
Last few seconds here. The next few weeks are going to be a real juggernaut. Everyone, buckle up.
That's true. And buckle up. Exactly. So thank you to everybody who has joined us. Thank you so much for all of your questions, comments, the generosity of all the people who contributed, because the dogs, they're chomping at the bit they really are literally chomping at the bit. So anything to calm them down. So really appreciate that. Thank you. We will be. Oh, wow. They kind of scare me. So we will be back next Monday for our joint live stream with these ferocious hounds. I'll be doing my solo tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Please join me. Until then, goodbye. Have fun. All the best. Goodbye.